Imagine feeling like you've been pushed out of your own story, not just ignored, but truly cast aside. Like the world has moved on without you. Your plans are gone. Your home is behind you, and the road ahead feels empty. For one woman in the Bible, that feeling became painfully real. Her name was Hagar, and her story, found in Genesis, is one of the most human stories in all of Scripture. It's a story about loneliness, survival, and the quiet moment when someone realizes that God sees them after all. Hagar lived in the household of a man named Abram and his wife Sarai. They were people of great faith, people who believed God had promised them a future. But for many years, one part of that promise seemed impossible. They had no children, and in the ancient world, that absence carried enormous weight. Time passed, years went by, and eventually Sarai made a decision that would change Hagar's life. She gave Hagar to Abram so that Hagar might bear a child on her behalf. To Sarai, it may have seemed like a practical solution, but to Hagar, it meant stepping into a situation she never asked for. Before long, Hagar became pregnant, and with that pregnancy came tension. Relationships shifted, and feelings grew complicated. Jealousy, pride, hurt, all of it began to swirl in that household, until finally, the tension became too much, and Hagar ran away. Picture the wilderness for a moment. Not just sand and sun, but silence. Miles of open land. No shade. No protection. That's where Hagar found herself. Alone. Pregnant. And uncertain about what would happen next. But in that quiet, lonely place, something unexpected happened. God met her there. An angel of the Lord appeared and spoke to her. Not with anger, but with compassion. And the message was simple. God knew her story. God saw her suffering. And God had not forgotten her. In fact, the angel told her something remarkable. Her child would live, and his life would grow into something far greater than she could imagine. For the first time in the Bible, someone gave God a name based on a personal experience. Hagar called him Elroy, which means, the God who sees me. Think about that moment. A woman who felt invisible, suddenly realizing she had been seen all along. Eventually, Hagar returned. Her son was born, and for a time, life continued. But the story wasn't over yet. Years later, the household changed again. Sarah eventually gave birth to her own son, Isaac. And once again, tension filled the air. Old wounds reopened. The situation between the two families became unbearable. And one day, Abram sent Hagar away. This time, there was no plan for her return. She left with her son and a small amount of water and bread, just enough for a short journey. They walked into the desert. The sun climbed higher. The water slowly ran out. And eventually, there was nothing left. Hagar knew what that meant. In the wilderness, without water, survival becomes a race against time. Her son grew weaker. And finally, in a moment of heartbreak no parent ever wants to face, Hagar placed him under a bush. She walked a short distance away because she couldn't bear to watch what she thought was about to happen. And there, in the middle of that unbearable moment, she wept. Part 4. God hears. The story doesn't end in that silence, because the Bible tells us something powerful. God heard the boy crying. And once again, God spoke to Hagar, not with judgment, not with blame, but with reassurance. Do not be afraid. Then her eyes were opened, and suddenly, she saw something she hadn't noticed before. A well of water, right there in the wilderness. Provision had been closer than she realized. She filled the container, gave water to her son, and life returned. What looked like the end of the story became the beginning of something new. Her son would grow, he would survive, and his future would unfold just as God had promised. Part 5. The Quiet Message. Hagar's story is different from many others in the Bible. She wasn't a queen. She wasn't a prophet. She didn't lead a nation. She was simply someone who felt overlooked, pushed aside, left out of the bigger plans around her. And yet, her story still mattered. God met her in the wilderness, not once, but twice, which means something important. The places that feel most forgotten are often the very places where God shows up. Sometimes we imagine God working only in big, dramatic moments, but often He meets people in quiet places, a desert road, a lonely season, a moment where someone feels like the world has moved on without them. Hagar's story reminds us of something simple and powerful. You may feel unseen, but you are not invisible, not to God. There's a beautiful line hidden in this ancient story. Hagar once said, "I have now seen the one who sees me." That realization changed everything, because sometimes the greatest comfort isn't that life suddenly becomes easy. It's knowing that we are not alone in it. The God who met Hagar in the wilderness is the same God who sees people today. In quiet moments, in uncertain seasons, in places where hope feels thin. And sometimes, just like Hagar, we discover that the help we needed was closer than we realized. If this story spoke to you today, feel free to share your thoughts below. And if you enjoy Bible stories told with heart and clarity, you're always welcome here at A Lamp for Today. Until next time, take care. And remember, even in the wilderness, you are seen.